All right, in this video, I just want to give a quick overview of how I made my AI generated short film companions, which is available on this same YouTube page if you haven't seen it. It's essentially about a dog with two owners, a man and a woman. Their ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, they've split up. The dog lives with the girlfriend, the ex-girlfriend, and the dog gets sick. It dies overnight, and then the spirit or the ghost of the dog runs to the ex-boyfriend's house to say goodbye. It's 4 minutes. It's basically about a dog saying goodbye to the people it loves in its life before it finally leaves the world. So if that sounds interesting, go check it out. But the main point of this video is to show how I made it in Runway, which is an AI video generation platform. And so if you're curious about how AI video is generated or longer content AI video, hopefully this little video can give you some idea of how it's done. So just to start out, this is Runway. Again, it's a platform for creating AI video. It offers a lot of different models. You can choose image generation models, you can choose video generation models, and you can combine them all using Runway's platform. Right here, I'm just looking at my workflows in Runway, and we'll see what a workflow is right now. So I have these 4 workflows that I use to create my companions short film. Let's see what a workflow looks like. Okay, so this is a workflow. Essentially, workflow is just the space where you can add all kinds of different AI models and combine them. This was my first kind of draft for my short film companions. And to give you an idea of what these look like, let's zoom in on one of these little clusters here. So right here, you can see I have this image that I brought in. This image was actually created in ChatGPT. Then I brought it into Runway. And then once I had it inside of Runway, I was able to connect the image to this box here, which is Kling 3.0 Pro, which is a video generation AI model. And then I also connected a text box, just a generic text box, to this Kling 3.0 box. And then once these were both connected to the Kling 3.0 box, I ran it. It starts with this image, and then it uses the text, which is just a prompt. And then it generates a 5-second video based on your starting image and then your prompt. And so that's kind of a general idea of how these clusters work. You can see I did a similar thing here. So I brought in an image from ChatGPT, wrote this prompt here, connected it to another Kling 3.0 Pro box, and generated this video here. I didn't actually end up using any of the videos inside of here. This workflow was just more of a starting point for me to try to get an idea of what the characters were going to look like, what the dog was going to look like. And you'll see later on that the whole look of the video changed quite a bit. One more thing worth mentioning is that each time you run a video generator in Runway, it costs about, well, Kling 3.0 costs, I think, 17 cents per second of generated video. The whole film ended up costing me probably somewhere between $150 and $200 to generate 4 minutes of video. And a lot of that price came from regenerating video that I wanted to look different. But we'll talk more about that later. So this workflow was just me messing around, as I said. In this second workflow here, which you can see is a lot bigger than the first one. In this workflow, I started really trying to nail down what I wanted the characters to look like, what I wanted the kind of animation to look like. As you can see here, it ended up looking a lot more realistic than it did in my first workflow, which, just to show you, looks much more kind of drawn. And this image ended up in the final video. So this is a pretty good idea of what the, I'll call it animation, looked like, because it is animation, even if it looks pretty realistic. And so in this workflow, once I had a good idea of what I wanted the characters to look like and what I wanted the animation style to look like, I began generating the first frame of each shot I was going to use in the final version of the video. So there's really very few videos in here. There might be some, but it's really mostly images that I would then use in my next workflow to generate the actual video that I would then put together for the full film. So you can see, I'll just zoom in here. You can get an idea of type of images I was generating. A lot of these, some of these weren't used, but most of what you're seeing here ended up being the first frame for each shot in the short film. And so here's the ex-boyfriend, here's the ex-girlfriend, here's the dog, here's the ex-boyfriend's house. And as you can see, there's a lot of photos here. And one thing to keep in mind if you ever want to try this is that as you have a larger and larger workflow, once you have more and more images or videos, the workflow gets pretty laggy. Even typing will have like a few seconds of lag on it, and it can really get frustrating. With this workflow, given its size, it got pretty laggy, and I probably should have just opened a new one to keep generating the images, but I decided to just stay in here for whatever reason. You can see there's all these branches. I was trying to keep some organization to this. It gets a little difficult to keep track of everything, so I was trying to have this branch as the images for the last part of the movie or film, and then the beginning images here, the middle images down here. And so once I had all of the images I wanted, I took them out of Runway onto my computer. I had a folder full of the images that were going to be used for the first frame of each take. And then in my third workflow, I brought all those images in, and there's still kind of a remnant of the organization I wanted. So I brought in the images, which are all actually right here. So if you are able to follow my cursor, this was the first row I brought in, this was the second row I brought in, this was the third row. And then once I had all the images in this new workflow, which again I exported from the second workflow, brought them back in for this third workflow, I began generating video based on those images. So let's zoom in. So in this row right here, I have the static images, which make up the first frame of each shot. And as you can see, it's kind of laggy right now. And it's because once you start getting a lot of frames or images or videos in your workflow, it just gets laggy. But so I would take each image, I would use the Kling 3.0 Pro as I used in that first workflow, if you remember the name of that. And then I would write the prompt, which is up here. And then I would generate all these kind of clips, these takes, using the prompt, the image, and then the video generator. And then I actually just kind of took these out. I mean, this is the same thing as this. And so I was trying to keep all these clips in order. So this is pretty much going sequentially through the film right now. You can see these clips are all about 5 or 10 seconds. In Kling, you can, if you're using one image, you can only generate 5, 10, or 15 seconds of video, nothing in between. So that's why these are all right around 5, or exactly 5, or exactly 10. And that can be good actually, because then you have, say you only want to use 3 seconds of the video, you get some space on either side of the part you actually want, so you can cut it and make it cleaner when you're editing. And so that's pretty much what I did in this workflow. I generated the videos. I did some new image generation if I didn't like the original image I brought in from the second workflow, and then I would create the video based on that. As you can see, this workflow got pretty big as well. And so this just shows that if you want to make a video, again, mine was only 4 minutes. If you want to make a video that's actually reflecting what you want, you have to do it this way. You can't just type in a single prompt into a video generator, say, make me a 4-minute video with this, this, and this. This is how a lot of AI films are actually made. I think it's probably a lot more work than some people imagine. I'm just trying to show you the scope of this whole workflow. And so once I had all the clips I wanted, all the shots, I exported all those videos individually. And then I put them into DaVinci Resolve, which is what I use to edit the short film. DaVinci Resolve is great. It's free. It's a very high quality video editor, on par with paid video editors as far as I know. So I took all these clips out, put them in the DaVinci Resolve, started putting them together, editing the film down. And then once I'd done as much as I could with all these clips here, I realized that some things were missing, that I wanted to add a certain shot, that I wanted a better version of a certain shot. And so in this fourth workflow here, which you can see is pretty small compared to the others, I just created some new shots, redid some, experimented a bit to see if I could make certain things better. Sometimes I could, sometimes I couldn't. And then once I was happy with my clips in here. Same thing, I would export them, put them into DaVinci Resolve, and then edit them into what I had already in DaVinci Resolve. Then once I had all the clips and a more or less finished form of the film, I recorded my own music using Reason, put the music into DaVinci, made it fit with the flow of the film, and then I added some text directly in DaVinci for the title. I actually made the credits using AI, first in ChatGPT, then I brought it in here and put them into the correct aspect ratio. And this is actually what appears in the short film itself. And yeah, that's kind of a broad overview of how I made the short film. If you're interested in doing it yourself, maybe this is helpful. A few kind of random notes. I was surprised that the characters' voices were the same throughout the entire process. I'm not completely sure how that happens because I didn't tell Runway anything about the voice actually. It generated the voices and then maintained the same voices for the two characters throughout. At first, I thought it was a default male female voice, but I've generated other voices in other projects and the voices are different, even though they're maintained within each project. So I'm not 100% sure how that's done, but it's very convenient because I didn't have to worry about the character's voice changing in each clip and finding a way to get the same voice each time. Also, there's a strange feature with Runway. It doesn't have an option to save your workflow. It only has autosave, which is strange. And sometimes after I'd created a new video or image, I would go to close the workflow and I get this notification saying, are you sure you want to close? You have unsaved work in the workflow. And I would have to generate a new image, just a random image, to get it to save. It's a strange feature. I don't know why they don't have an automatic save. And a hint, if you're going to try to make your own film, be sure you get a good idea of what you want your character to look like before you start generating a lot of videos or images, because if you're not careful, the certain features can change. For instance, when I was making the main character here, his name is Mark, his face changed a few times and I kind of had to, at some point, put all of his images into one workflow with kind of the master image of him that I wanted. I had to connect that master image to all the other images with a prompt saying, make this image look like the master image. And through that, I was able to get a consistent look for Mark, but it was just a little detour I had to take. The dog is interesting. The dog has spots, as you can see here on its face. It's kind of a white and brown dog. And at some point I had to make sure that his spots, especially on his side, were consistent throughout. I'm trying to look for a zoom in here. So as you can see, the dog, whose name is Sammy in the film, has these two spots right here. Maintaining consistency with his spot pattern was kind of frustrating. So if you're going to make something with an animal, maybe just make it a single color. I think that would probably save you some work. One feature that I found did not work very well was this extract audio box right here. So this connects to a video, it takes out the audio, and then you can regenerate it using a different voice. I was just kind of testing this, but the generated audio doesn't seem to pick up very well on certain words. When I played this, it just had cut off syllables. I've tried using it in other projects too, and it has similar issues. So I'm not sure how useful that is at the moment. So yeah, that's how I made Companions. As I said, it's on my channel. I'll put a link to it in the description also. And yeah, if you want to make your own AI short film, I hope this was helpful. Or if you're just curious about how these are being made, hopefully this gives you a better idea of how it's done. And if you have any questions, post them in the comments and I'll try to answer them. All right, thanks for watching and check out Companions.